2013. Let's talk more about it. What's at stake here? Brian Geltzeiler, we talked about the Warriors side with 3D. Let's talk about the Knicks side here. As these two teams going in opposite directions, Geltzy, this is quite the job decision when you've got two different jobs and you pick one over the other. Steve Kerr may be the biggest genius ever.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if the Knicks had honored their contract offer to him in the first place, he'd probably be there instead of the Warriors, but that's a different conversation for a different day. Here's the reality. Players matter, Jared, and Golden State had him, and the Knicks didn't. Now, I think the Knicks would be further along if Kerr went there. He was going to have some personnel power with that organization, and certainly would probably have them in a better situation than they are now. Nonetheless, Phil Jackson would have been a lot less involved in what went on if Kerr ended up taking that coaching job, and he would have had a lot of say in personnel. So it went in a different direction for the Knicks, but the Knicks have finally are starting to get this right. Listen, Porzingis is out for the foreseeable future right now. We don't know when he's going to be back, but they are evaluating young talent and young players. They're finding out that Kevin Knox can play. They pretty much picked Noah Vonleh off a scrap heap. He's been terrific for him. Emmanuel Mudiay is finally fulfilling some of that promise that so many people like me thought that he had. So the Knicks are doing this the right way. They're going to get another lottery pick, hopefully for them a high lottery pick, but they're finally going through the painful rebuild they were never willing to go through up till now.
Geltzy, let's talk more about Porzingis. Number one, do you expect him to play this season? And if the Knicks are indeed, quote-unquote, tanking, why would they want to bring him back? Plus, you've got the whole restricted free agency situation with Porzingis coming up this summer since they didn't come to an agreement prior to the year.
To me, this Porzingis situation is pretty simple, Jared. Do not play him this year. Just let him sit the entire year. Let him get a full summer underneath his belt. Come back fresh next season. As far as the restricted free agency is concerned, the Knicks have one choice and one choice only, and they better not get cute. Offer him the full max from the jump and bring him back. Listen, the Knicks are in a unique situation. They're one of the worst teams in the league, yet all we hear is their name mentioned for some of the major free agents that are out there, whether it's Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, Jimmy Butler. The Knicks' name has been prominent. Kristaps Porzingis matters a lot in all that. Make sure you have him locked up there for the long term. Make sure he's totally healthy when the season starts. He's a really nice recruiting tool for you because he's got a ton of ability. Nothing to prove to bring him back this year, not even a little bit. They know who he is when he's healthy, and they're going to have to roll the dice that he is healthy and give him all that money, every dime of the max, Jared.
Okay, Geltzy, let's go to 10 before tip number 3. It's what's at stake. First players only game on the NBA TV doubleheader. Head coach Ryan Saunders coaches his first game as the Timberwolves interim head coach in a hostile environment, to say the least, in Oklahoma City. What can we expect here from a 32-year-old first-time head coach, Ryan Saunders, guiding the Timberwolves?
He's going to start here as the anti-Tom Thibodeau, Jared. He's going to try to keep things light, keep things a little bit more fun. For a Timberwolves group that we don't know where their work ethic is, and Tom really had to push them, I don't know if that's the best thing for them in the long term, but we'll probably see a spirited performance out of them this evening, I would think, in the fact that Tom didn't exactly engender a whole lot of support among players on that roster. Only his Timber Bulls were the guys that he really had in his corner. So I would think tonight we're going to see a refreshed look out of some of the young guys on the Timberwolves, so we're going to be happy to not have Thibodeau there anymore.
All right, this Minnesota team has won 2 in a row. They are in the 11th spot in the West, but they've got a lot of teams to leapfrog. Do you have any realistic expectations of Minnesota making it back to the playoffs for the second straight year after the 14-year drought?
I don't, just because when I look at who's in the playoffs right now in the Western Conference, it's hard for me to envision more than one team there dropping out. And I do think the team that's going to manage to claw their way in that's out right now is the Utah Jazz. So I don't know that the Timberwolves are going to make the playoffs either way. I think you had to expect a step back with having the Butler trade. And this has been a step back. I mean, we can debate the Thibodeau thing till we're blue in the face. I'm not sure it was the right call. Nonetheless, I don't think this particular coaching move and bringing in Ryan Saunders with not a lot of experience is going to be something that catapults them into a very tough Western Conference playoff situation.
All right, Geltzy, yeah, as I was explaining, it'll be tough here for Minnesota in the 11th spot. Only 2 games back of the Lakers in the loss column. But again, you've got Utah, Sacramento, and you wonder if the Pelicans are going to get back into this mix after they've been playing really good basketball of late. Meanwhile, the team they're going to play tonight, Oklahoma City, coming off the loss but still playing really good basketball, the best defensive team by all measures in the NBA right now. But who's the best player on the Thunder right now?
Russell Westbrook. They go like Russell Westbrook goes, and I know Paul George is having an outstanding season right now, but the reason he's been able to have that good a season is because of the changes Westbrook has made to his game. I don't want to put it in these terms because it almost sounds like Westbrook has too much power on this team, but George is doing this because Russ is allowing him to do this, Jared. He's getting him the ball in those spots. He's letting him take big shots at the end of games. He's being deferential in the right spots and not deferential in the right spots. Westbrook has evolved and matured in a very unique way. He still has all the ability he's always had, but he's allowed Paul George to be the guy that he's been this year. The other thing about this team, no overhang with who's going to stay, who's going to go next year. They know this group's going to be together a while, but no doubt in my mind, Westbrook's still the best player on the Oklahoma City Thunder, still the straw that stirs their drink.
Guilty from SiriusXM NBA Radio. Plenty more to do with you. Now, 10 before tip number 4. It's buzzing today around the NBA. No love, at least no love anytime soon. Kevin Love says he is still weeks away from returning from the toe injury that has kept him out since the second week of the season. Love says that once he is healthy, he wants to get back on the floor with his guys. But the question now is, will those guys be the Cavs? Love's contract becomes eligible to be traded on January 24th. The New York Times is reporting within the last hour that the NBA will launch an official investigation into the signing and near immediate release of restricted free agent Patrick McCaw. We'll talk more about Patrick McCaw's situation with Gelty coming up in our next segment. I feel like I'm the best player in the game. Not me. Anthony Davis saying that to Joe Barden of The Athletic. Then he went out last night, absolutely balled, 36 points and 13 rebounds as the Pels now have won 4 of 6. Real and not so spectacular. The Ringer's Kevin O'Connor reporting that Jimmy Butler's problems with the Sixers' offensive system are real. Butler's back tonight after missing the last 2 with an illness. The Sixers host Washington. Coming up on 10 before tip, we got plenty more to do, including a busy night around the association. Get you set for Kawhi back in the lineup with Kyle Lowry, but Danny Green is out, so Van Vliet stays in the lineup. We've got players-only doubleheader. Minnesota taking on Oklahoma City, followed by the Knicks and the Warriors, all right here on NBA TV tonight. We come back and talk with Gelty about the great Vince Carter, possibly playing north of the border for the last time ever. Is he the greatest Raptor ever, though? We'll answer that question next. Give you a status update tonight on an 8-game slate. Jimmy Butler back in the lineup tonight. J.J. Redick out, though, with a back injury. Dennis Schroeder, who has been a big part of the Thunder's success, is questionable tonight for the game you'll see on NBA TV on Players Only. Now, Devin Booker doubtful for a big game tonight for the Suns. Meanwhile, Sean Livingston out for the game against the Knicks, which is the second half of our Players Only doubleheader tonight at 10:30 Eastern. Whole slew of injuries tonight for the Pacers. But the only one that appears to be out is Miles Turner. Darren Collison and Corey Joseph both expected to play tonight for Indiana. Derrick Rose out. Robert Covington also out for Minnesota. So not the full bench available for Ryan Saunders in his head coaching debut. Gary Harris is listed right now as a game-time decision for their matchup in Miami tonight. And Danny Green's going to be out. So, as I mentioned earlier, how about the Toronto Raptors keeping Van Vliet in the lineup? He had filled in for Kawhi, filled in for Lowry. Now with both of them in the lineup, Danny Green out, Van Vliet is going to start once again. Let's take you around the NBA and get you set for some of the bigger games on this 8-game night. The Cavs taking on Indiana. They've lost 9 in a row, has Cleveland. 1 win over the last 13, and that win was against the Pacers. Cedi Osman had the tip in. Pacers coming off the loss, and again, with all these injuries, we'll see how healthy they can be, but we'll see defensively if they're able to slow down the Cavs tonight. Meanwhile, Washington playing in Philadelphia. Philadelphia will have their full complement of guys, minus J.J. Redick. Philly comes in having won 3 in a row and 6 of 8. We'll see how the offenses run tonight. Will there be more isolation to cater to Jimmy Butler or more ball and man movement like Coach Brown likes to play with? In Miami tonight, we'll see if the Heat can keep this going. Somehow, some way, Miami's won 3 of 4, and Justice Winslow's been a real good run of the point. They'll try and take advantage of the Nuggets playing on the second night of a back-to-back, and not only a second night of a back-to-back, but after losing an hour flying from Houston to South Florida late last night. Meanwhile, tonight in Toronto, is it the last time we see Vince Carter? Show you some flashbacks of some of the best of Vince Carter in 7 seasons playing for the Raptors. He is one of the greats. There's no question about it in Raptor history what he has done. He changed the culture. He changed the awareness. Vince Carter was a game changer for Canadian basketball. Brian Geltyler, SiriusXM NBA Radio. Hawks in Toronto tonight. It could be Vince Carter's last game there. unless you feel like he's got a few more years left in him.
I think it's probably his last game there, Jared. I mean, he's had an illustrious career. One of the beautiful parts about Vince Carter's career is the grace in which he graduated into being a role player. It's so difficult for guys that are stars at his level to accept the fact they're not who they are anymore. They don't have that ability to take over a game. The athleticism isn't there like it once was. Carter was so graceful in taking that role in Dallas and being able to be the sixth man. And now he's just been an elder statesman that's been able to help some younger teams. An amazing career for an amazing guy, and really just always handled himself with the utmost of class, Jared.
One of a very few men who have scored 25,000 points in their NBA career. Now, many feel this is blasphemy, and I feel it's blasphemy that you and I agree on something here, Gelsey, but we're going to rank them. The top 5 greatest Raptors of all time. Not much history in this organization over just 2 decades, but Gelsey, here's my top 5 ranking of Raptors of all time. I go with the guy who's played the most games, scored the most points, won the most playoff games, and was the first guy to say, you know what? I will re-sign and play here despite other teams wanting me in the U.S. Kyle Lowry right behind him on most statistical categories and right there winning those playoff games. Vince Carter, I know he was a culture changer, but he won 1 playoff series. These 2 guys won 4 of them, and if it wasn't for LeBron James, they may have gone to an NBA Finals or 2. Chris Bosh will put in 4, and I'll put in Kawhi at 5. If you're going to tell me that Vince Carter is part of a culture change, well, so is Kawhi. Gelsey, got any problems with my list?
The only issue I have is that you have a guy on that list who's played less than 3 months of basketball with that team as one of their top 5 all-time guys.
Come on.
I got a little bit of an issue
They've
there.
only been in the league for like 23 years.
I hear you, but come on. I mean, the guy's been there for less than 3 months.
Well, let's take a look at your list and see how bad your list is, Gelsey, here. You got DeRozan at number 1, right? Do we agree? Listen, we know Vince Carter changed the culture, but statistically, and when you talk about winning being the most important thing, Gelsey, how is DeRozan not the best player of all time?
I totally agree. DeRozan, he changed the culture there. He grew up in that organization, and he made that a desirable place to go. Wanted to stay there in the worst way. It has to be him. I have Carter second because he put Toronto basketball on the map, and I think it's relevant, and I think it matters. Yes, he only won 1 playoff series, but he made people want to pay attention to the Toronto Raptors. And quite frankly, Kyle Lowry landed a little lower on my list because I think this year, the way he's handled not having his buddy DeRozan and having Kawhi Leonard and really kind of undercutting, in my opinion, a little bit, their chances to be the best team in the East with his lack of acceptance of Leonard is an enormous issue to me and has him down at 4, where maybe he would have been higher otherwise.
All right, Gelsey, real quick, let's go to settle this. I mentioned in our prior segment the issue here where Mark Stein of the New York Times is reporting that the league is going to look into the situation with Patrick McCaw, where by the letter of the law, it appears the Cavaliers and the agent, Bill Duffy, did nothing wrong here by signing and then almost immediately releasing Patrick McCaw. What do you think comes of this? Was it just petty play by the Cavs to try and, essentially get back at the Warriors for all those championships?
Well, no, I don't think it was that as much as I think what it was is the Cavs figured if we can pry him loose from the Warriors on a non-guaranteed deal with this offer sheet, then maybe we can get him back at a little bit of a cheaper number just for this year or pay him more money and have him on just a 1-year deal. I think that was kind of what they thought. The thing is this, I don't know that the league has to look into it. I don't know the league can do anything about it right now. It's an enormous loophole that will be repaired in the next CBA. We won't hear about it from a headline standpoint, but believe me, there will be no more offer sheets for restricted free agents that are non-guaranteed in the next CBA.
Correct, because listen, as much as people want to focus on what this did to the Warriors because they were unable to match this deal, it also, for Patrick McCaw, gets him to next summer as an unrestricted free agent. He very well may sign right now on a minimum deal with some team, but most importantly for Patrick McCaw, he may be able to cash in next summer, which truly was not an option for him over the summer when the Warriors had the option to match a potential deal.
And the other thing is this, he didn't want to be in Golden State anymore. For whatever reason, this was not a place where he felt like he was appreciated. He wanted more of a role. He took a step back last year. He had that bad back injury. So this really, in the end, was a huge favor for Bill Duffy and Patrick McCaw going into next summer.
Brian Geltfather, SiriusXM NBA Radio. We'll check you out on the radio. Appreciate you joining us here on 10 Before Tip, presented by Ford. Plenty more to come here on this edition. We'll give you a little Say What action. Plus, get you ready for more of the night's action, including a players-only doubleheader, which features Karl Anthony Towns and his new interim head coach, Ryan Saunders, taking on the Thunder